Welcome, everybody, to the September 19th, 2023 City of Oshkosh Plan Commission meeting. We're glad you can join us. I see we have a quorum. I do have a few housekeeping items to go over before we begin. Please turn off or silence all personal communication devices. The applicant and members of the public may speak to any item before the Plan Commission when the relevant item to which you wish to speak is called and public comment is opened. Unless an exception is made by the Plan Commission, the following rules will apply. The applicant will be given up to 10 minutes to present any information they wish the Plan Commission to consider. Thereafter, members of the public will be given up to 5 minutes to address the specific item before the Plan Commission for consideration. Members of the public may only speak once per called agenda item unless a Plan Commission member requires clarification or wishes to ask you a question. Questions or statements from the audience will not be considered. Only statements from the podium after your stated name and address and within the allowed time constraints are taken into consideration. After all community members have had an opportunity to speak on the called agenda item, the applicant will be asked if they have a final statement for the Plan Commission, and then the Commission may take action on that agenda item. The Common Council has adopted rules of decorum for city boards and commissions, including the adoption of a civility pledge. No person shall personally attack a board member, commission member, city official, staff, or any other person. No person shall make irrelevant, unduly repetitive, offensive, threatening, slanderous, defamatory, or obscene remarks or act in such a manner as to disrupt or disturb the orderly conduct of the meeting. This includes hand clapping, stomping of feet, whistling, shouting, or other demonstrations. I thank you all for your understanding. Now on to the agenda. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lowenstein, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Kulabali,
Here.
Ms. Davy, Councilmember Esslinger,
Here.
Ms. Prop,
Here.
Ms. Shireman,
Here.
Vice Chair Kiefer, and Chairman Perry.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Approval of September 5th, 2023 minutes. Plan Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and approval. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we can have a voice vote here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the presentation and discussion on Clearwell Ad Hoc Committee report for the property located at 425 Lakeshore Drive. City of Oshkosh is the owner. Before we start with the report, I would like to mention to the Plan Commission that this is a non-actionable item, so there will be no motion after this. This is essentially a workshop in a public forum. Okay, have there been any site inspections? Okay, Mr. Lowenstein, Ms. Shireman, and Councilmember Esslinger. I'll accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your...
So there is no staff report for this. Again,
Okay.
This is just going to be a presentation by the consultant that the city used as part of the Clearwell Ad Hoc Committee. And there'll be a bit of a time for some open discussion as well as public comment, but no formal action will be taken by Plan Commission today. Yes, Linda.
And I would appreciate if you state your name and address for our minutes, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Moore. I'm a project manager with Jacobs Engineering. We're based out of Milwaukee. Our street address is 1610 North 2nd Street, Suite 201, Milwaukee, 53212. Thanks, Mark, for the intro. I'm going to try the clicker here. Okay, great. Have about a dozen slides here to provide the Plan Commission with a very brief overview of the project background, the Aesthetic Ad Hoc Committee that was created by Common Council in February of this year, their work and findings through a course of 4 meetings and related communication this summer. We're going to focus on the portion of the Clear Wells replacement project that encompasses the two aesthetic features, the exterior finishes of the new buildings and the filtration plant perimeter fence. So, the Clear Wells replacement project is one that has been in development for a long time. The city was first informed about the need to address its buried potable water storage tanks, which are called Clear Wells. The Clear Wells are shown as a lawn-covered area within the orange shape, the water filtration plant site. So the southeastern portion of the site that looks like lawn is actually earth mounded up over partially buried storage tanks and grass on top of it. And the city first went into design in 2017, and through additional permitting requirements and studies suggested by the PSC, went back into final design in 2021. And then in 2022, looked hard at other alternatives that were previously studied, largely because of interest in not constructing replacement water storage tanks that were above or at grade. The current buried tanks, because they're potable water and they're in an area within the 100-year floodplain, and they're hydraulically connected to local groundwater, are subject to potential contamination. And that's why the DNR wants to see them replaced with storage facilities that are located at grade and above that threat to potential contamination. But when the tanks are located at grade, they're tall structures, they're highly visible. They're not as tall as the existing main treatment complex, but they are a good 10, 11 feet taller than the lawn-covered areas now occupied by the Clear Wells. So early this year, Common Council created the ad hoc committee of folks interested in how to maximize the potential attractiveness of project features, enhance green space, enhance public appreciation of this area in the community. So the purpose of the committee was to provide input on building aesthetics, the reservoirs and the pump station, and to provide input on landscaping for areas adjacent to the treatment plant site, the right-of-ways of the bounding streets, Merritt Avenue on the north, Lindy Street on the west, Washington Avenue to the south, and Lakeshore Drive. In addition, they were charged with considering improving the small park area that is further south and east of the treatment plant site and just north of the waters and at the very far east end of Washington Ave, and to consider the potential addition of water-themed educational or historic features in the project and in these adjacent areas. So, through meetings, discussion, listening, developing, rendering concepts like these based on input and ideas, the city or the committee during the fourth meeting voted on their preference for architectural finishes. And this slide shows the 5 concepts that were identified. And the top 2, option 1 and option 5, were the ones that gained an equal and the highest number of votes. In this, I think I'll stop there and then I'll wait for any questions about the renderings or the facades. This view is one that shows the new facilities on the top. It's option 1, and on the lower level is option 5, where they would be on the site relative to the treatment plant and the shoreline.
Those will be the renderings you have in front of you as well.
So, in addition to considering building facades, we talked extensively about perimeter fence, site security, what is expected of water utilities since 9/11 in terms of securing their perimeter, landscaping, appearance, functionality, and we discussed 2 possible fence designs. The one on the left is one that includes some decorative brick and stone piers mixed in with kind of the black wrought iron security fence. And then the one on the right is without piers. And the committee preferred the design without the piers. Then when we talked every meeting about landscaping. Landscaping is very important, and there was a lot of thoughtful input provided about what could make sense and what could improve the project site and the areas adjacent. And so the results of voting showed a very high preference for incorporating native species in the landscaping design. And whatever landscaping design was put in place for these project areas, it made sense to the committee to think about extending those design concepts into Menominee Park. We learned during the committee meetings that Menominee Park is in the process of master planning and considering improvements to the beach shelter, the beach itself. So the preference was to tie these areas together with a pedestrian way, tie them together thematically with landscaping and with educational signage. And we didn't spend a lot of time talking about a water-themed educational historic feature, but we got some good suggestions from the committee that are included with the meeting minutes and will be passed on to the landscape architect selected to develop the plan for this area. And what is the blue there? I'm sorry, I can't read, Mark. My
Lake
glasses.
ecology, local, you're talking the one on the right, correct?
Yeah,
Lake
the-
ecology, local history, clean water.
Right. So just a lot of enthusiasm for making everybody more aware of this this area and the treasures, both current and historic. So hoping to see those kinds of themes carried into signs that could be located along the pedestrian way. So we're here tonight presenting the highlights of these recommendations of the committee. All of the committee meetings and handouts are posted to the Water Utility webpage if you're interested in more details. And then we are planning to present the highlights of the committee's work, input from Advisory Park Board and from Plan Commission to Common Council next week. Because the clear wells need to be replaced to comply with the state statute, we are not under a consent order, but we are under a corrective action plan, which means we must enter into final design for these improvements this fall and then get construction underway next year. So the plan would be to work on those filtration plant improvements this fall, also work on a landscape plan for the areas we just talked about, and then get final permitting through city, including Plan Commission in 2024, through the DNR and through the Public Service Commission, so that we can get construction underway. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to accept that report as part of our record. We are going to ask some technical questions at this time. So Plan Commission, do you have any questions right now before we go into other parts of this agenda item? Ms. Shireman?
Can you tell us more about the ad hoc committee? Like how many members and how they were?
So I'm going to defer that to Mr. Robbie, the Public Works Director is coming up. He can kind of talk more about that.
Okay.
So the members of the ad hoc committee, the applications were opened up similar to any other board and commission, and then those members were appointed or recommended by the mayor and then approved by the common council. The committee makeup was 7 members. Unfortunately, right as we were beginning our work, our committee work, one of the members had to drop out, so we had 6 members for the duration of the meetings.
So when we talk about like votes and things, there were 6 folks that were voting on.
Yeah, and
Plan.
Linda, if you want to talk about the kind of the voting process that you use for this.
Right. So, as James explained, we had committee members, and then in addition, we had committee liaisons. There was a representative from the fire department, the police department, planning, community development, and public works. And when it came to voting, the committee liaisons.
And parks.
Oh, pardon me, and parks, pardon me, parks. When it came to voting, committee members got twice the voting power as liaisons. So if there were shares to vote on any topic, they could vote 4 votes for their favorite building facade, or a committee member could vote 1 vote for 4 different facades, whereas a committee liaison could vote 2 votes.
5 city staff and then 6 ad hoc members that were appointed by the mayor. Okay. Or they applied and then they were appointed by the mayor. Okay.
So could I just follow?
Mr. Lowenstein.
How many total votes?
I can look on my computer. I'm
30.
sorry, I never totaled the,
I just couldn't tell.
It would be-
Like one slide, there were 20-some votes, the other, there were 12. So it's hard to tell, like, what was more popular, if it was radically different, if everybody voted for number 1.
oh, yeah, no, somebody could put all 4 votes on one thing. Like if they had a favorite building concept, they could put all 4 or both. So,
And there were, each item, so for the facade, each of the liaison, or the committee members had 4 dots they could vote with. For each of the landscape features, they had 4 dots. So each of the various features, each of the committee members was given, kind of 4 votes to put where they wanted to on any of those topics.
Are you done?
Other,
I have one more.
Ms. Shireman?
When we look at option 1 and 5, those were the 2 top vote getting, right?
correct.
For the facade?
For the facade. Okay. Is, just to the naked eye, is just the difference, just, I
Okay,
mean, I know the fence, one has the pillars and one does not, and then,
okay, so option 1, it might be easier to look at on the renderings, the black and white renderings. I think Mark
they look
handed them out.
remarkably the same.
Yeah, the
other than-
primary difference is the banding at the top.
Right.
Option 1 has, I'm not an architect, so
Okay,
excuse me.
so option 1 in the banding, the pump station has masonry glass block windows in between brick and banded above and below, and that feature is similar to the filtration plant. And then for the reservoirs, rather than having windows, because these are concrete structures, the window shape, that 4x4 area or 5x5 area, was filled with herringbone patterned brick. So you get a suggestion of a window, but it's not a window. Then with the precast concrete panels that have art on them, we replaced the window impression on the reservoir with panels. We kept the daylighting windows on the north, south, and east sides of the pump station because we want daylighting in that room. That's going to be a highly occupied space, and we want good natural light in that room. But we did put a wild rice motif on a precast concrete veneer or panel on the Lakeshore Drive side and sacrifice some daylighting there.
So, yeah, it's really the inclusion of the art, for lack of a better term, versus the herringbone brick patterns.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Prop?
I have a technical question, not so much aesthetics, but of course, when it came in originally, I'm going to call it oil tanks was the motif, and which is why people were upset about how it looked. But evidently, engineering-wise, we've got things restructured now so that it's in they're shorter and in a rectangular.
Yes, that was direction. Common Council passed a resolution in September of last year directing staff to work with Linda and her team to redesign the storage tanks from the precast round structures to the cast-in-place rectangular structures. So that's been a part of the process from, September until we started the ad hoc groups of getting at least that level of design effort done, so we had something that we could show the committee and get feedback on. So, yes, that's.
Okay, so it's been engineered and not just a matter of aesthetics.
The final engineering, no, that has
Oh,
not
but
taken place.
It's been the decision has been made.
Yes, the decision of round versus rectangular was made by Common Council September of last year.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Councilmember Essener?
Thank you. So, I'm to understand then that the goal or the objective of the Plan Commission is the same as that of the ad hoc committee, that there are no, and I know this is gonna come up, there are financial assets and pros and cons to different options. But this is pure aesthetics, is what we're looking to do here.
Yeah, Linda and I have had some conversations, take the two facade layouts that are in the handouts before you. Based on the level of engineering that we have completed so far, which, as I said before, is not final design, the cost differential between the two is not very significant. Once we get into final design and figure out how this panel would have to get fastened versus a brick, there may be some difference, but not very significant, especially when you look at it in comparison to the cost differential of the decision council made last September, which was, going from round to the rectangular was about a $4 million addition to the project cost. The cost between the two different facades at this point in time is, in our best estimation, negligible at this point.
So how can I say this? There is going to be a financial aspect of this that's yet to be determined, correct? If there's gonna be a difference between one project or the other, one option or the other, there are gonna be differences in monetary value, but that is yet to be determined, or no?
Are you talking about a capital cost difference between option 1 and option 5?
Well, any of them. I mean, like he was just saying, you have a circular or a square where there's going to be millions of dollars worth of difference in the two different approaches that you use. Does that have anything to do with the aesthetic value that we're looking at here?
Well, I guess I'm going to repeat what James just said, which is where Common Council decided to move forward with the rectangular tanks, even though they will cost more. And as far as the facades, brick veneer versus precast panel veneer, what we've determined so far, just at a conceptual level, is that as long as we don't spend tens of thousands of dollars going back and forth on CAD design for what the sturgeon should look like or the wild rice plant should look like, then the costs are comparable.
Because as a councilman, I'm already getting emails saying there's going to be a couple $1 million difference. I don't care, spend the money. But it sounds like that decision's already been made.
The decision, like I said, between the round versus rectangular, yes, based on the level of engineering we have completed at this point, we do not see a significant change in facade option 1 versus facade option 5 at this point.
And just to, kind of talk about what we're doing today versus what Plan Commission will ultimately weigh in on this project. Today, we just wanted to kind of give you a presentation and open up some discussion on kind of what's been going on. Plan Commission saw this project several years ago. A lot has happened with the creation of the ad hoc committee and some of the decisions that a council has made between then and now. No formal recommendation or action is needed by Plan Commission on this today. Today, we're just here to kind of show you what's going on. The ad hoc committee recommendations will be going to council next week. I'm saying that correct? After council then really has their chance to weigh in on the broader picture. Elevations, Lakeshore Park, the drive. There's a lot of other elements that we're not here looking at today that are involved in potential overall project. Council will have a chance next week to weigh in on those. Once council has a chance to weigh in on those, some of these pieces will be coming back to Plan Commission. Final building elevation design is something Plan Commission has to weigh in on. So if council gives direction next week saying, we want Public Works, we want you to move forward with this, that design would then have to come back for Plan Commission for the normal process of official approval of public design. This project is a plan development overlay on this property, and at some point, the full design, landscaping, lighting, fencing, everything will have to come back through our typical plan development approval process, where Plan Commission will be weighing in on the land use, the landscaping, all of that side of it, before that ultimately goes on to council. But today, we just wanted to kind of get you involved in the process, let you know what's going on. You will be seeing this for formal approvals at a later date.
At least
And probably-
twice.
Oh, sorry.
At least twice.
I was gonna say, and that's what I was just gonna say, multiple times you will be seeing this.
Yeah.
Dr. Koulibaly.
I understand that the participation in the other committee was open, and this is a project for the entire city. But I was wondering about the representation of the neighborhood in that committee.
There was fairly significant representation in the neighborhood on that committee. Just kind of going through the committee members, Mr. Wyman, who, is very heavily involved in the waters, which is right next door, was on the committee. Ms. Buckstaff lives in the neighborhood. Mr. Spanbauer lives in the neighborhood. Even Ms. Bartelt lives a handful of blocks away. So that's already 4 of the 6 members. I believe Mr. Shear lives on the north side of the park. And then, who am I missing? Chris Anderson, as a representative of the Otter Street Fishing Club, which, they're right there and they are very heavy users of this area. So it was, the makeup was very heavily focused towards people that live or utilize this area.
Thank you.
Ms. Prop.
Are we able, as individual plan commission members, to give our opinion on which option we like today?
Yeah, you can give some feedback. Like I said, there's not a formal recommendation. This body will not be making a formal vote, but if you want to give feedback, you can.
Was this the right time to do it?
Let's
We
wait till the end.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions from the Plan Commission on the presentation? Okay. Seeing none, just want to remind you that it will come back several times, at least 2 at a minimum and probably more, for actionable items. As I like to do for all items on the agenda, I will hold a public comment period. It's going to be just a little bit different in that we've already had a statement from the applicant. So at this time, I'd like to request if there are any other members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item. If you approach the podium and state your name and address for our record, please, we'd appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Aaron Shear. I live at 1720 Cliffview Drive. I sent a document out to the committee today, and if you didn't get it, I have copies here for you. Did I send it by email? Did people get
I
it? Not
haven't
get
had
it?
time to look at email.
I know a couple people got it. 'Cause would you like a copy?
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, but I want to remind you, you're on the clock.
It's okay.
All right.
I was a member of the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, and I've also been actively engaged in this project for over 2 years. From the very beginning, when I learned about it, I have been advocating that the city get a landscape architect involved, because this is a really important site with a lot of dimensions, and that's what landscape architects do. They wrestle with that. Myself and others on the committee expressed frustration in the very first meeting that a landscape architect hadn't been involved, and throughout our process, we continued to express that frustration. You saw we were presented very specific architectural plans that we could give feedback on. We were not shown any landscape plans for the site, so we were just kind of saying native plants are nice, but I have been advocating from the beginning that the landscape dimension is incredibly important for this project. I'm asking you to insist that a comprehensive plan for the water filtration plant site and the surrounding public lands be developed before the clear wells and pump house project is further reviewed and advanced. The city manager's newsletter on Friday said that the Plan Commission is not being informed about and asked to give recommendations on the adjacent street and park because it is outside of your jurisdiction. This confuses me. If a private developer came to you with a non-conforming project, wouldn't you insist that they address the non-conforming dimensions with all the land that they own? If the private developer refused to show you their plans for the adjacent property because the property is managed by a different division of their business, would you accept that rationale? Wouldn't you just reject the project outright since it's non-conforming and they haven't done what they can to mitigate the non-conforming dimensions? I think we would all agree that the city's ordinances and planning codes exist for very important reasons. The city staff and this commission makes a great deal of effort to ensure projects meet the codes, and when they don't, ensuring as much as possible has been done to mitigate the non-conforming aspects or to simply deny the project. It seems the city should be even more attentive and accountable to these codes when it's planning its own project. What are the implications for this project? The massive buildings do not meet setback codes from the street. What would it take to make them compliant? You would have to remove the south section of Lakeshore Drive. What are the key uses of the south section of Lakeshore Drive? The fire department uses it to drive fire trucks straight through without having to turn around, and events use it for ice and park access by vehicles in winter. So, if the street stays, how are you going to mitigate the impact of the massive buildings being so close to the street? With green space, landscaping, and trees. But we haven't seen a landscaping plan to be assured that these massive buildings and their close proximity to the street can be mitigated to some extent by green space and landscaping. Why is that problematic? This is a very complex site, and every decision, even seemingly small, impacts other factors. For instance, the project was presented to the Parks Advisory Board for their feedback on the proposed street and parking layout. The Parks Board went against the Clearwell Advisory Committee's recommendation and endorsed a plan that would widen the south section of street and add 16 parking spaces. The problem with this recommendation is that the Parks Advisory Board was not informed that this decision removes the only possible remaining significant area near the buildings where a berm with trees could be created. The city staff also told them they could make the curbs of those parking spaces low so that trucks could back their trailers into them and park them on the grass. This would further reduce where trees could be planted. You are being asked to review a fence style today, but you're not being shown a plan for where the fence is going. Don't you want to know where the fence is going? Isn't that what the Plan Commission does? And while I suppose you can consider the building facade concepts, is that typical? Do you typically approve a building concept without a site plan, especially without even knowing where the street will be located? Isn't that typically a major part of your consideration, knowing what the building setbacks will be from the street? The city staff today is asking you to limit your consideration and feedback to the building's exterior design and the fence style, but you don't have to limit yourself. I'm asking you to respond that you can't endorse dimensions of the project piecemeal. You can say that you must see the comprehensive plan for the site and surrounding public lands sooner rather than later. If you wait until the project is fully designed, it'll come back to you at the very end of planning, and I expect you'll be told it's too late and too costly to make changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Any other members of the public wish to speak? Approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
My name is Kirsten, City of Oshkosh. Now, it's a lot to digest, to look at all of this material when we sat in many meetings to refine what was going on. I'll be germane specific to the facade.
We need an address.
I would really appreciate if you would consider looking at art panels, as I would call them or term them, there's a lot of opportunity there to highlight what that lake is to us with using sturgeon panels. It's hard to see in this specific option 5, but those panels can be cast with any design that you would like. We threw around the idea of using sturgeon for the obvious reasons. It's such an important piece of Lake Winnebago, not only in the fishing industry, but cultural history. It's an opportunity to really reinvent that site and also propose some cultural literacy in using those sturgeon pieces, as that's a very important part of Menominee history. The Manuman, or wild rice panel, which would be displayed on the pump house, which you can see is in the center, is also a very important piece of our pre-settlement history. So if you can imagine, which I know it is, again, difficult to do on a black and white piece of paper, that whitish band are the precast pieces that would actually have to be designed by the architect to have specific joinings so you could actually see that theme. I would definitely ask you to consider, amidst all of this information, as well as landscaping, aesthetics, whatnot, but like I said, specifically germane to the building site, that we could actually tell a story with those panels and give some deference to the cultural history that we have here in Oshkosh, and that being indigenous history, and also highlight what we do all winter with sturgeon spearing and the great amount of attention that that gets worldwide. I think it would be a great opportunity at that federal lakeshore to see that.
Thank you. Ma'am, we do need a street address for our records, please.
1212 Washington Avenue.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
My name is Bill Wyman. I live at 1373 Wagoo, and I own the Waters, which is right next door to this property. I strongly believe, as Aaron does, is we have to look at this as a big picture. We shouldn't just approve one little building and one little fence. The whole park ties into this, the Little Oshkosh, the new bear exhibit, the beach house, what they're going to do with Merritt Street. They're talking about changing the whole beach. This is a big part of Oshkosh. This Menominee Park is one of the strongest things this community has. And I think it's important to look at the big picture, and I'm concerned, as Aaron is, that we're looking at all these little segments, and to put the whole thing together is the only way we're going to get the true look of what this whole area is going to look like. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. We don't need a closing statement from the applicant. So, Commission, you can discuss further if you wish. Recommendations are okay. Ms. Shireman.
I have two clarifying questions. Can someone talk about the disconnect, what appears to be a disconnect to me with the 16 extra parking spots and the setbacks? So those are my two questions. Can those be addressed?
So I guess what is your question related to them?
It seems like there's a conflict, like,
Yes, the ad hoc committee has one set of recommendations, and Public Works can weigh in here. Parks Advisory Board recommended something different. Those recommendations will go on to council for council's consideration, and council will ultimately have to weigh in on what they would like to see in that. Those elements of things that'll have to get incorporated into an overall site plan that will need to come back to like this group and council through that plan development approval process. The reason we're not looking at that stuff today is until those decisions are made by council, they can't be incorporated in a plan for you to look at. I wholeheartedly agree. Landscape architect getting involved is necessary to make this a successful project, so that native landscaping, it can be well designed, well incorporated. But that process needs to take place once there's some direction from council to Public Works on what they want to see them have done.
the 16 parking spots is just a recommendation. It's not, it hasn't been approved.
That is something council will ultimately have to weigh in on and make a decision on.
Okay.
I
And
know
then what
Mr.
about the
Robbie's coming up
setbacks?
as well.
Okay.
Setbacks as well, and part of the reason we're not looking at it today is depending upon what happens with some of those decisions, the property line may need to move, and what that ultimate setback ends up, maybe it ends up conforming. Maybe they end up needing a base standard modification. Until some of those other questions and direction are given to council, we don't have something to show you and tell you what will be needed through the plan development. Ultimately, end up meeting code. It may not meet code, but we want council to weigh in on those decisions, so then a site plan can be appropriately prepared that tells us what we need to then do from an approval and procedural standpoint.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Robbie?
Just if you needed any help from me, Mark, that's all I came up for.
No, I got it. Thank you.
Ms. Prop?
Personally, I like option one. Option 5 is fine, and a nice case has been made for option 5, so I wouldn't object to that. And I can do without the piers for the fence. So those are my opinions on what we were asked to be.
Thank you. Mr. Lowenstein?
I guess my question for city staff is, it sounds like members of the committee are very adamant that moving the road, redesigning the whole corner is really what should be happening now, but that didn't happen, and could you talk about why? I noticed, Mr. Shear's drawings have a changed Lakeshore Drive. Is it a cost
So that,
issue, and what was going on with that?
so that is their recommendation, which will go on to council. Ultimately, council is going to take that recommendation, and they're going to have to make some decisions and give some recommendations to public works staff and park staff on what council wants them to do.
I would say direction, not
Direction,
recommendations.
sorry, direction to public works staff on what they want. Do they want Lakeshore redesigned? Do they want Lakeshore moved? Do they want parking added, removed? They're gonna have to give some direction, some exact direction to Public Works, so then they can work on those plans that show whatever it is council wants done there.
Yes, Mr. Lowenstein?
So my follow-up question would be then, with our consultant, were they instructed not to design plans that changed the road because council had not done that in the earlier?
The various layouts for the street were not done by the consultant at all. That was done by in-house engineering division staff to come up with those alternatives. And that effort was led directly by Steve Godey, working with the engineering division staff. Again, a lot of that is, we have staff that can draw that, and their cost is already being borne by us versus, having to pay our consultant to do that level of work. So, that's why those alternatives were done in-house, to then be able to present those options, and then ultimately, as Mr. Lyon said, get the direction from council so that we can proceed. Because likely we are going to, if the street is getting realigned, we're going to have to change the right-of-ways out there, and then that's going to mean that, some things that are right-of-way now are going to become property, which is going to change, the setbacks to these structures. So there's so many fluid things right now that we need some clear direction to be able to proceed to the next step, at which point in time, once we have that, then we can get the landscape architect engaged to, take all of the recommendations that we've received so far and start developing something that will ultimately come back, as Mr. Lyon said, to this board.
Ms. Sharman?
Staying on the same, what I'm struggling with is, in your words, there's a lot of things are still fluid, including streets. Like, I can sort of live with the landscaping plan and have a lot of faith that, because it is gonna come back before us, but it seems like the street, the setbacks, like, that's pretty significant. I mean, if you really just want us to pick option A or your option 1 or option 5, I mean, that, just looking at a picture isn't hard to do. But it's hard to endorse something when you know that there's something else sort of looming there.
Which, again, that's why we're just giving you some information
Yeah.
today. We know this will have to come back as part of an overall project.
Got it.
Any other comments before we move on? I do have one myself. One of the recommendations I would make to council is that, this is going to come back to us several times for actionable items. It sounds like we'll probably see some BSMs and some other types of things. And the one recommendation I make for the council is that, as I see now with the limited information that we have, it's pretty stark exterior that needs to be softened. And generally, when we're asked to make some kind of modification, one of the trade backs that we frequently ask for is significant additional landscaping. And so I just want those that are going beyond this before it comes back to us for actionable items to know that that's likely to be on the table as the additional significant landscaping if we're looking at other modifications. So that's my recommendation out there. Anything else before we move on? All right, seeing none. Item number 2 is a public hearing to zone change from single-family residential 9 and SR 9 to institutional district I for the property located on the south side of the 100 block of West Custer Avenue. James Fox, as the Oshkosh Area School District, is the owner. Nate Considine is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections of that particular site? I see Councilmember Esslinger, Ms. Shireman. Okay, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant requests a zone change for the existing single-family residential 9 district to institutional for the vacant property located on the south side of the 100 block of West Custer Avenue. The site is currently zoned SR9 and previously had a single-family home that was recently raised. The surrounding area consists primarily of residential uses to the north and the east and institutional uses to the south and the west. The 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan recommends light-density residential uses in that area. The applicant is requesting a zone change to provide the appropriate zoning for the development of future green space for the neighboring school site. The rezone will provide consistent zoning for the properties, which is needed to complete a CSM to combine them. The proposed institutional zoning is not consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan recommendation of light-density residential for the subject site. However, staff does not see concerns with the proposed rezone to institutional, as the comprehensive plan is not intended to be parcel-specific, and the purpose of the rezone is to allow for the future development of the new school's green space. For these reasons, staff is supportive of the proposed rezoning of the subject site. Staff recommends approval of the rezone with the findings listed in the staff report.
All right, thank you for your report. Plan Commission, technical questions to the staff on this agenda item? Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm assuming this change is for future activities that would be happening on the parcel?
So, yeah, right now, the school district picked it up when the previous house burned and was demoed, so they acquired the lot. They want to incorporate that lot into the lot to the south of the existing school site. Is in order to combine those lots, state statute requires that they be under common zoning. So the rest of the school site is institutionally zoned, so you legally can't combine those two parcels unless you get them under common zoning. There's no plans right now to actively use that for part of the actual development of future. It would likely just be green space, but in order to CSM them together, they have to do the zone change.
So the talk of a walking track, running track wouldn't be on that parcel?
Not on this specific part of the broader.
Part of the other part, I got it.
Exactly, yep.
Okay. And just one other, maybe silly question. Why was the architect the petitioner and not the school district?
So that is their consultant that's been working through all of their projects in the city. So they're petitioning on behalf of the school district.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other technical questions for staff? Okay, I see none, and this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here today? Approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Hello, my name is Nate Considine with Bray Architects out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Address is 829 South First Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53204. As the staff report indicated, this parcel is part of a future CSM to allow for the future green space on the current Merrill site. So really just trying to help with setbacks when they choose to develop that more than green space down the road. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Since this is a public hearing, I will open it now for the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? All All right, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. We don't necessarily need a closing statement from the applicant, so Commission, what is your action?
Motion to adopt the findings within the staff report.
Second.
Can we have a motion and a second? Is there any discussion on this motion? Any discussion on this motion from the Plan Commission? Having seen none, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye. Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
All right, thank you. Item number 3 is also a public hearing. It's a zone change from a 2-flat residential 10 zoning district with a planned development overlay to a central mixed-use zoning district, a CMU, for the property located at 17 East Parkway Avenue. Jeremy West of J. West Rentals is the owner and applicant. Have there been any site inspections of this property? Ms. Prop, Ms. Shireman, okay, and Mr. Councilmember Esslinger? All right, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Chairman. So the applicant is requesting a zone change from the existing 2-flat residential 10 district with a planned development overlay to the central mixed-use district for the property located at 17 East Parkway. According to assessor's data, the property contains one building that was constructed in 1956, and the building is currently vacant. The surrounding area consists mainly of commercial uses to the north, residential to the east, and some commercial and mixed uses to the west, as long as an institutional property right here to the northeast. The 2040 comprehensive plan recommends center city land uses for the subject area. And just for reference here too, this you kind of see the zoning here. This section here is zoned CMU with a plan development overlay, and then this all here, is zoned CMU. You can see here. This over here is the TR10 district. Here's just another image of the site from above. The applicant intends to utilize the existing vacant building to store and sell pool tables. This type of commercial land use of retail sales is not currently permitted within the TR10 zoning district. Therefore, this would be considered a legal non-conforming land use. The applicant, however, does intend to make improvements to the site, but legal non-conforming land uses cannot be expanded. So the rezone request is intended to provide the proper zoning to allow future improvements to the site, as well as the land use will then be permitted by right, and it will also bring the site into harmony with the rest of the commercial block and with the 2040 comprehensive plan. This is a real basic site plan, just showing what the applicant is proposing as far as the improvements go. He'd like to add some concrete here with the appropriate stormwater features and add a greened area to the west. So with that, staff does not have concerns with the proposed rezone to CMU, and we recommend approval.
Okay, Plan Commission, do you have any technical questions to the staff on this agenda item? Ms. Shireman?
So the improvements must be sufficient in your mind, like a little bit of green and like a new loading dock.
Yep, so what he's proposing would meet code. It really doesn't make sense that that's zoned TR10, which is
Right.
more of a residential zoning with a commercial building on it. So this is really just getting the appropriate zoning that matches the surrounding area and really matches the building that's there today.
Any other technical questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. So this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here today?
Don't see Jeremy. I do not see him.
Okay. And the applicant is not here, and so we will ask at this time if there is any additional public statement at the public hearing here. Any other member of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Anyone wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. We don't have a closing statement from the applicant, so Commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Wonderful, thank you. Item number 4 is another public hearing. It's a conditional use permit for an adaptive reuse at 2501 Harrison Street. Winnebago County Housing Authority is the owner and the applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Everybody but Dr. Kulabali and Mr. Lowenstein. All right, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. The subject site is located on the west side of Harrison Street, north of Libby Avenue. It's about a half acre in size, and it's developed with an existing building, including an attached garage and associated parking area. And it was most recently used as a CBRF. The surrounding area is a mixture of residential and industrial land uses and vacant land to the west. Here's a view of the subject site. The applicant is requesting approval for an adaptive reuse of the site to convert the existing building to an office to be utilized by Winnebago County Housing Authority for 6 to 7 employees. Plans for the site include interior work and repaving the existing parking lot in the same footprint. Staff is in support of the CUP as the conversion of the site to an office should not have an adverse impact on neighboring properties due to the relatively small scale of use with up to 7 employees. The use is also compatible with neighboring properties in the surrounding area, as the surrounding area includes several non-residential land uses. Also, existing parking area and garage area provided on the site has a total of 7 parking stalls, which should be sufficient for the expected number of employees. So staff recommends approval of the CUP for adaptive reuse with the findings in your staff report.
Okay, thank you. Technical questions from the Plan Commission? Technical questions? I just have one. This was a CBRF, correct? A former CBRF?
Previously, yep.
Any other technical questions? All right, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here tonight?
Yep.
Approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Wade Foley, I'm Director of Maintenance for Oshkosh Winnebago County Housing Authority at 600 Merritt Avenue.
Do you have anything you want to add to the report, or?
We're just going to try to use this temporarily. We are actively looking for an office space. It's just we haven't found one that will work properly for us yet. We have this building. We might as well use it until we find something.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'll open this to other members of the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? All right, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. We don't necessarily need a closing statement from the applicant, so commission action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Ms. Prop?
This question brought on by his comment. This is an adaptive reuse. They are actively looking to find somewhere else. When they end this use, what does that do to the property?
So, 2 options. We could formally remove the conditional use permit if we wanted to, or after 12 months of not being used, the conditional use permit would automatically roll off and it would just return to the residential use.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, I'm seeing none, so let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 5 is another public hearing. It's a conditional use permit for an adaptive reuse at 204 Church Avenue. Clinton Lard, Behind Stained Glass LLC, is the owner and applicant. Has there been any site inspections of this property? Ms. Shireman, Councilmember Rasslinger, Mr. Lowenstein, and Ms. Prop. Okay, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for an adaptive reuse for an existing structure located at the northwesterly corner of Church Avenue and Central Street. Up on the screen is land use map of the area. The subject parcel is approximately 4,800 square feet in area and is developed with an existing 2,300 square foot two-story building constructed pre-1920. I wasn't able to find the exact year of construction, but guessing probably late 1800s, early 1900s. According to city records, this property was originally used as a single-family home. Between 1976 and 1977, the use changed to a commercial abstract and title business. And since that time, the property switched uses several times from various commercial and to institutional uses. The surrounding area has a wide variety of uses, including government. Right across the street is City Hall, other institutional uses, and various residential uses to the north. The applicant's requesting the approval for a CUP to allow the reuse of the existing property to allow a single-family house. The UMU zoning district does not allow single-family houses, so the adaptive reuse course of action is a prudent choice to reestablish the single-family use. There's just a couple street views of the house. According to the applicant, the existing building footprint will not be changed, and there are no external design modifications planned. Over the years, the structure has been well maintained. Staff is in support of the conditional use permit for the adaptive reuse. It's obvious that when the house was originally constructed, it was meant to be a single-family dwelling, and it's just reverting back to that original use. So staff is supportive of the adaptive reuse at 204 Church Avenue as requested.
Okay, Plan Commission, does anybody have technical questions for the staff? Ms.
I'm just curious, between 1976 and today, every time they switched uses to institutional, did it always come before us and it had to be changed again?
No, if it was as long as it was an institutional land use and various institutionals going in and out of it, it did not require city action.
Okay.
The reason it needs it now is because they're going back to a residential. Kind of as we talked on the last item, the benefit of the adaptive reuse is if it no longer wants to be used as a single-family home and it needs to go back to institutional or something else that allowed in that zoning district, it could easily go back to a title company, attorney's office, those things, by keeping that existing underlying UMU zoning and just using the adaptive reuse to facilitate it as a home at this time.
Second question, there's no expiration on an adaptive use?
So conditional use permits do not expire as long as they're actively being used. If they cease being used for 12 consecutive months, they do expire.
Got it. So keeping it the flexibility, it's just doing the, versus doing a zone change or a plan development.
Correct. If we did like a zone change to TR10 or something where traditionally the single family home would be allowed, then if, 2 years from now a title company wanted to go back in there, they'd be coming back and having to redo the zone change.
Got it, thank you.
There were challenges with a zone change as well. It would have been a spot zone.
Correct. There's no other single family zoning adjacent to this, so it would be very difficult to actually do it through a zone change.
Okay, I'm fine, yeah, it's fine, thank you.
Any other technical questions by Plan Commission? Okay, I'm seeing none, so since this is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing and ask for a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here? State your name and address for our records, please.
Excuse me. My name is Clinton Laird. I am a board member of Behind Stained Glass LLC. Behind Stained Glass is owned by Calvary Sunrise, the church across the street from here at 222 Church Avenue, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We acquired this property a while back, and it seemed that the most logical use for it was residential, even though it had been being used by a lawyer before that. But the layout of the property seemed best used by residential. It's currently being used as a rental property, and there is a single family living within it. And we were recommended to seek this course of action from the city, and so here we are.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time on this agenda item? Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. We don't necessarily need a closing statement from the applicant, so Plan Commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations in the staff report.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion on this motion? Any commission discussion? All right, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 6 is a comprehensive land use plan map amendment from light density residential to community facility for property located at 505 North Westfield Street. Michael J. McClone is the owner, United Church of God. Oshkosh is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections by the Plan Commission? Ms. Prop? Okay. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site is a 0.6 acre commercial property located at the southwest corner of Taft Avenue and North Westfield Street. The site includes a 4,000 square foot office building and parking area that was previously used as an office for an insurance agent. The site is zoned SMU, and the 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan has the property slated for light density residential land use. The applicant is proposing an indoor institutional land use, which is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and is not permitted in the SMU district, so that use requires a comp plan amendment and zone change. The surrounding area consists of multifamily uses to the north, south, and west, and Oshkosh West High School and their athletic facilities to the east. The petitioner approached the city about utilizing the existing building on the subject site for a church. This was brought to a Plan Commission workshop on March 21st of this year. Plan Commission was supportive of the proposal. It was also brought to a neighborhood meeting in August of this year with no neighbors attending. Staff is supportive of the proposed land use amendment, as the proposed community facility land use designation is consistent with neighboring institutional land uses, specifically Oshkosh West High School immediately to the east. The proposed land use will also be relatively compatible with neighboring residential properties to the north, south, and west, as community facility land uses are located within many residentially developed areas in the city, so this is consistent with land use patterns in the city. So with that, staff recommends approval of the requested land use map amendment from light density residential to community facility, with findings that the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comp plan and is consistent with the surrounding area.
Thank you very much for your report. Plan Commission, any technical questions to staff? Any technical questions? All right, I'm seeing none. So as I like to do with most agenda items, I will have a public comment period. Is the applicant here and wish to speak?
Yes.
Approach the stadium or the podium, please, and state your name and address for our records.
Michael Konjerski. You want me to spell that?
Yes, please.
Kinjerski.
Thank you.
Welcome.
The common spelling.
Address 6616 Wooden Shoe Road, Neenah, Wisconsin, 54956.
Thank you.
I'm representing the United Church of God. In February, we made an offer to purchase the property located at 505 North Westfield. As mentioned, it's the former McClone Insurance Building. The purchase is contingent on a successful rezone from commercial to religious use. Our attendance is about around 35. There's adequate parking. There are no plans for changes to the site. Are there any questions I can answer? Any questions you may have of me?
Well, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak? Any other member of the public that wishes to speak at this time? All right, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to close the public comment period. I don't need a closing statement from the applicant, so commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion from the Plan Commission? Any discussion? And I'm seeing none, so roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Wonderful, thank you. Item number 7 is a general development plan and specific implementation plan review for an industrial development at 3463 Compass Way. Lycon Incorporated is the owner and the applicant. There been any site inspections of that property? Ms. Prop, Ms. Shireman? Okay. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. The subject site is a 31-acre vacant parcel located along Compass Way and Transit Drive east of Claryville Road. It is located in the Southwest Industrial Park, and the surrounding area is a mixture of vacant land and industrial uses. The applicant is proposing to develop the subject property for manufacturing of concrete and associated activities. This will include railroad access and car storage, along with transload facilities for receiving, storage, and shipping of various sands and aggregates. The applicant anticipates that the site will initially have up to 5 employees and up to 30 employees when fully developed. The site will have 2 accesses off of Compass Way and Transit Drive, and will include 4 centrally located buildings on the site. The site will also include an approximately 185,000 square foot outdoor storage area at the southwest portion of the site, seen in this area. Screening is required from non-industrialized areas for outdoor storage areas, so the applicant will need to provide screening from the public right-of-way areas along Compass Way and Transit Drive. So staff is recommending a solid row of evergreen trees to fully screen view of the storage area, or else provide 8-foot-tall solid fencing to meet those screening requirements. Code requires 1 parking stall per employee at the largest work shift for industrial uses. They stated that they will have up to 30 employees, so based on the 19 parking stalls currently shown in the plan, they would need an additional 11 stalls to be striped to meet that requirement. And the plan does show sufficient paved area to accommodate those additional parking stalls. The plan for the ready mix plant building shown here, it shows an overall height of 88 feet, where the maximum building height in the HI district is 60 feet. According to the applicant, the increased height is needed to enclose the tall cement silos that would otherwise be exposed. Staff is supportive of the requested BSM, as the increased height for the tower is needed to accommodate this land use. The applicant has stated that Winnebago County has verified that the building is below the maximum airport height elevation. And to offset the requested BSM, staff is recommending a condition that a minimum of 20% of this building be devoted to Class 1 materials. Their landscape or their lighting plan is deficient of the code requirement for lighting levels for drive aisles and parking areas, which is 0.4 foot candles. So they will need to increase that in some areas. Also, the plan shows 28-foot tall light poles being utilized, which exceeds the maximum light fixture height of 25 feet for the HI district. So those things can be addressed during the site plan review phase. Here's the landscape plan. It is exceeding the point requirement for building foundation landscaping. It is deficient of the paved area landscaping point requirements. The paved area landscaping requirements also include 30% of the points being devoted to trees and 40% to shrubs and a tall deciduous or shade tree at the ends of all parking rows. These requirements are also not being met with this plan, and that will need to be addressed during site plan review. They are exceeding the point requirement for street frontage landscaping. And they can reallocate some of those points for the paved area landscaping. And they're also deficient on the yard landscaping, but again, they have excessive street frontage landscaping, so they can kind of reallocate some of those points to meet those deficiencies. And here are the building elevations. So this is the ready-mix plant building, the aggregate storage facility, and the reclaim plant. So the buildings will be clad in a combination of faux stone veneer, metal panels, and concrete panels. The elevations meet the Class 1 material requirement for facades facing a public streets, with the exception of the north elevation of the reclaim plant, which shows 0% Class 1 materials. So staff is recommending that they increase those Class 1 materials to the code minimum along that north-facing facade. The ready-mix plants elevations, as previously discussed, will also need to include 20% Class 1 materials to offset that requested BSM for the increased height. So with that, staff recommends approval of the GDP and SIP with the findings and conditions in your staff report.
All right, thank you for your report. Plan Commission, any technical questions to staff? Ms. Shireman?
A lot today. Seems like there's like a lot of recommendations, so when you, and they all seem amenable, but does the, do they have to okay that or they have to go by those plans, but have you discussed those? Is there any contentious? We'll come back
So
before us.
we've been going back and forth with them quite a bit to get up to this process. There are changes that'll need to be made to meet code.
Yeah.
Because there is some deficiencies, so we've
Right.
kind of outlined them in this plan. At this point, we want to at least get the project moving forward, get into your hands and council's hands. The issues that remain here are relatively minimal, like the landscaping. It's just a matter of reallocating some of the stuff on
And some
different
parking
places of the
stalls,
site. They have enough room, they just need to stripe some of the parking. So they're pretty minimal issues that we felt it's close enough that we can get it in front of you and we can work with them to resolve some of those final details.
And if there was something that they were just like, no way, not going to do it, then it would
would have to
non-conforming, then it'd have to come back
Correct.
to us.
If you approved it with these conditions, council approves this conditions, ultimately there's something they don't want to do.
Right.
They'd have to come back
That's
and
what I
ask for
wanted
a
to- okay.
change.
Thank you.
Any other technical questions? All right, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to open a public comment period. Is the applicant here to make a statement? Please state your name and address for our records, please.
Hello, I'm G.R. Lyons, President of Lycon Incorporated, 1110 Harding Street, Janesville, Wisconsin. So I just wanted to come and clarify and answer any questions if necessary. We have a structural engineer designing, not an architect, and a railroad engineer designing the layout. It's the operational stuff that we're trying to do, and they obviously didn't get the points right on the landscaping and all of that. But their form and function of making the operation work properly, and we fully intend to make this a showpiece, and we would gladly demonstrate that with the other plants we've constructed around the state. And, encourage you to reach out to the Village of Oregon or City of Middleton or any of them, and their planning departments and see what they've thought. The purpose behind this facility is to have a state-of-the-art, the lowest carbon footprint plant we can have in the marketplace. That's the idea behind the railroad. That's the idea behind the recycling of the leftover concrete, so we can reutilize those aggregates rather than throwing it away and bringing fresh in. So that's kind of basics. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this agenda item? Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, I see none, so I'm going to close the public comment period. We don't need a closing statement from the applicant, so Plan Commission, the action is on you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, I see no discussion on the motion, so let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the planning manager's report.
Thank you. So just a bit of housekeeping. We do have 2 open seats on the extraterritorial zoning committee. So quick just background for anyone that is not aware of this. Through our boundary agreement with the town of Algoma, we have an extraterritorial Plan Commission. That Plan Commission has not met in many years. It only meets when there is a rezoning or a project that is taking place within our boundary agreement area. Obviously, we're through attachment C, D, what are we on? C. So most of the area that used to be under extraterritorial zoning control has actually now been moved into the city, but there are still some areas that fall within that boundary agreement. If somebody wants to do a zone change in that area, we have to call the extraterritorial zoning committee to order. It's made up of members of this plan commission as well as the township. It is right now we have 2 vacant seats on that, should we need to call it. So the mayor has asked that we judge your interest. Are there anyone that's willing to fill those vacant seats? Both the seats we have right now are the alternate seats. There are 3 active seats that are filled, but we're just looking if there's people willing to serve should we need it. Anyone else?
Are there any leftovers still serving, or this is a whole new?
There are the 3 primary seats are presently filled. Mr. Kiefer is appointed through 2026. Kathy, you are actually still on it until 2026. And Miss Davy is on it through 2024. It's the 2 alternate seats, like so they're open. So
I believe one of our alternates who is not here has expressed interest as well.
yes, yeah, DJ did express interest. Meredith, ultimately the mayor will have to make appointments, council will have to approve them, but again, it really comes down to, and just from a question of timing, that board would meet during this meeting, should it ever be needed. So, anyone else? And Meredith? Okay. Yeah, so all we're going to do is give the names to the mayor, and he'll have to.
Then will we be notified?
Yep, it'll get appointed at council just like you would for normal plan commission, so we'll let you know.
All right.
That's it.
Any other questions about that? The last item on our official agenda is adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we don't need a discussion, so let's have a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. We have.